The president, left North Carolina, went to California, toured the fires there to see what's happening. But it's going to be very interesting to see what is happening, with state and local folks trying to get that, that relief effort is still ongoing. I mean, people are, it's cold. It's particularly in the mountains. I talked with Senator Heiss earlier this week. He's from Mitchell County. He was giving me kind of an update of their local things that were happening. So, and he lived in an area right there in Spruce Pine that, was decimated. But lots to cover, lots to talk about, and a new calendar. Kudos to Speaker. To the speaker for putting out a calendar that people can operate on. We'll talk more about that when we come back from the break. Thanks for listening.
Local voices, real stories. Join the conversation. 844-STUDIO-4. We'll be right back with more All Things Saine.
Warming things up even more today. Plenty of sunshine. Easily will be our warmest day of the week as temperatures climb into the mid and even upper 60s for the afternoon. Get breezy too. Winds pick up, gusting around 25 miles an hour at times. With that dry air and that breeze, it'll make it easy for fires to get out of control. So if you can, at all costs, avoid burning today. Overnight low temperatures dip back into the mid-30s. Back up around 60 for our Thursday and an isolated shower. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
The WSIC app is available now wherever you get your apps, featuring local deals from great local businesses like Greystone Lodge in Boone.
Here's your WSIC community calendar. Beer Lab in Mooresville presents Music Bingo on Thursday night, January 30th. 4 rounds begin at 7 p.m. with a chance to win prizes for each round. Don't miss Ghostface Brewing's beer lineup and their menu of pizza, wings, and salads. Beer Lab on Broad Street in Mooresville presents Music Bingo on Thursday. Bin 110 in Cornelius kicks off 3 straight nights of live music on Thursday, January 30th with Peyton Belligan and Christian Stewart. Friday night, Chasing Phoenix performs, and Saturday night, String Theory takes the stage. Make your weekend count with 3 nights of live music Thursday through Saturday at Bin 110 in Cornelius. On Friday night at Micaiah's Bar and Live Music, Rumor Mill performs their first show of 2025. Come listen to the classic rock songs and sounds of the 70s, 80s, and 90s with Rumor Mill at Micaiah's in Mooresville, Friday night at 9:30. The Statesville Chamber of Commerce presents the kickoff event for Surge, a group for young professionals of Iredell County, on Friday night at the Watering Hole on West Broad Street in Statesville. Surge fosters relationships, develops business opportunities, supports civic involvement, and promotes an overall investment in the future of the community. Join Surge for games, food, and networking Friday at 6 p.m. at the Watering Hole in Statesville. Class is in session at Charlotte Motor Speedway with their selection of racing schools. Buck Baker's Seat Time Racing School was founded in 1980 by 2-time NASCAR champion Buck Baker. Graduates include Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Ryan Newman, and thousands of people just like you. Book now at 704-998-1957. Visit charlottemotorspeedway.com for more details and information. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
From the house floor to your radio dial,
Glad you joined us if you're joining us live.
it's All Things Sane.
Love talking to everyone in and around the lake.
WSIC. Local starts here.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
All Things Saine. Representative Jason Saine.
We've got fun and games. We got everything you want, honey. We know the name.
And good morning. Welcome back to All Things Saine here on WSIC. I'm Jason Saine, your host for this hour as we dive into everything, kind of all things sane, quite frankly. We'll talk politics, what's happening in North Carolina. We were talking earlier about the House Select Committee on Helene Recovery, and that will meet today at 2 o'clock. If you go to their website, ncleg.gov, I think it'll be an interesting committee hearing. They've got on deck Dudley Green. I said Dudley Moore earlier. Although I do love Dudley Moore. Dudley Green is the co-chair, along with Representative John Bell, who's the House Rules Chairman. Both good friends. And Dudley will be chairing today. But they've got the Hurricane Helene recovery update. and executive orders. They'll be reviewing those that have come through during the time of the disaster and the recovery. Matt Calabria, who's the director of the Governor's Recovery Office for Western North Carolina, you can call it GROW-NC, we'll be talking to the committee. Also, Jonathan Krebs, who's Western North Carolina Recovery Advisor with GROW-NC, will be presenting. And then FEMA temporary housing update. Will Ray, Director of North Carolina Emergency Management, will be addressing the committee as well. I've talked to, having been a legislator not too long ago, and people from outside of the state, not knowing that I did resign in August to pursue a lobbying career, among other things, and the business that we have, and then also doing some lobbying with the Southern Group, who is a sponsor of the show. But they forget that, hey, I'm not in the legislature anymore. Maybe they didn't know it. So I've gotten calls from recovery groups out of Florida, and legislators from Texas and Louisiana. Louisiana, they really know how to recover from it because they have to experience it so often. Think about the Cajun Navy that came up to help and so forth. But hearing from them, and one of the things that I know was just a choke point early on was temporary housing and getting it here. In Florida, you talk to Florida legislators. They've got it down. They're used to it, and this was something that was, quite frankly, an anomaly. It just had not happened. It was 100 years flood or whatever they called it. But it happened, and so how we deal with it and recover from it is probably the biggest part. So they're going to be talking about that temporary housing, and then also federal recovery resources and the American Relief Act of 2025. Mark White from their fiscal research division will present on that. So hopefully that's something that is informative, and that folks will pay attention to, because I do think that they're just from my conversations with legislators, there's been sometimes a lack of sense of urgency from state government. This will be something that folks will pay attention to. And quite frankly, it's the only thing happening in Raleigh right now as folks get back into their offices and get adjusted. We're going to have a legislator call us at the bottom of the hour, give us a quick update. Try to leave them alone for a number of reasons, because I appreciate the fact when they're not having to be at the legislature, they're kind of off work and trying to catch up from the things that they didn't get done last session. I was talking to Representative Donnie Lambeth, who's a good friend, and he and I co-chaired appropriations together, and he's still the senior appropriations chair and continuing in his role, and Donnie's really the statesman, and he's very good about working, with the Senate and with members of our caucus and members of the Democrat caucus and so forth. But we were just talking this morning and catching up real quick, and he was telling me, he already kind of hitting the ground running and getting back into the groove. But they get to enjoy a little bit of a Christmas break too, particularly after intensive campaigning into November, and then trying to get over that, and then acclimated and sworn in. And I always joke, you get sworn in, then a couple days later you get sworn out, but just part of the job. But they did, one of the most miraculous things, and I know this will sound like, well, yeah, of course they do that. But for years, the North Carolina House did not put out a schedule, and I'm talking about for the members. So you're always constantly juggling what you can do and say yes to in your district, what you're now going to have to go back to Raleigh to do because, hey, there's whatever issue that's pressing or whatever thing that they're working on. And members, I know for years, me included, begged for a calendar. Particularly, Catherine and I have a 16-year-old son, and you're trying to plan around their school time and their vacation time and everything else, and you just couldn't plan. And so one of the things that just caught my eye this morning, and I'm loving it, particularly having lived it, at 10:46 this morning, so right before we went on air, I got this notice on X that Speaker Destin Hall was introducing the 2025 legislative calendar. Now, you might pin it up. It's I think it's very attractive to look at. It has reds and oranges and purples, and just one of the best calendars I've ever seen in my life. I kid and jest, but if you're a legislator, this means a lot to you. So you look and see, you can quickly visually look at when they're going to be in session, when they're going to meeting, and most importantly, when they're going to break. Now that I'm on this side of it, my cooling off period ends in about a little over a week. So I haven't been to the legislature and just only talk to friends as friends, but seeing how I can plan my schedule and everyone else, press, everybody, citizens, everybody that interacts with the legislature can look at, and that is on Speaker Destin Hall's X feed. I'm sure you can find it other places. I'm sure he posted it somewhere else, but I found it on X, and you can follow him at NC Speaker Hall. That's his tag, and you can find him there. And like I say, I now know that April 21st to the 25th looks like they're going to observe what one would call an Easter break, but it just says break. We'll take it, and then they've got around May 26th for that week as well, around the holiday, and I think it just gives people certainty, and people like that in their lives, even legislators. It's a lot of chaos, and it's a lot of trying to tell your spouse and your family why you can't be at something, or you promised you'd be at something, and now that's changed. Luckily, I was very lucky. Of course, I don't mind getting in the car and driving 3 hours and spending an hour and then turning right back around and going back to Raleigh. But, I shouldn't say I didn't mind it, but I didn't love it, but I did it because that's what I had to do. But it's tough, particularly for members who we've got members who live closer. One of my dear friends, Representative Carl Gillespie, I think he lives closer to five other state capitals than Raleigh. He's in far western North Carolina. So it's quite a haul for him. And try to imagine if you're on the coast or you're out in western North Carolina, trying to just plan your family calendar. Tough to do and do things in the district. But they're all getting their sea legs, starting to things get rolling. But this calendar, and after I saw it post, literally it was in a text chain with a group of friends, some are staffers, some are legislators, and just praising the calendar. So for the big news today, that is the big political news in North Carolina. Believe it or not. You might not think so, but I'm telling you, they'll love that. But lots will go on today, really kind of behind the scenes as well, as those committee assignments are out there. People are interested. They if maybe it's aging that you deal with. And I say that because my wife is director of our senior services in Lincoln County, and she's on a call right now. She said, "Hey, I'm learning about what your colleagues are doing and what's happening." And everybody just kind of, if you interact with state government, you're kind of waiting to see it all get started. So that will happen. Like I said, those committee assignments are, it's like, did you get the right class? Are you in the right place? Particularly if you're a new legislator, because we got a lot of noobs and folks that, this is their first term. My replacement, Representative Heather Ryan, she's at least had the benefit of being there about 6 months before all the other freshmen. And congrats to her. She was elected as the freshman leader, which puts her in the leadership position as kind of the interface between that Republican freshman class and the leadership there with Speaker Hall and Representative John Bell. And so she's advancing quickly. She's got a little bit of a jump, but look, nobody understands it when they first get there. Unlike anything else. They can give you an orientation, but you can't really plan for it. And look, legislators just jump right in. They learn very quickly. You might find out how to legislate before you find where all the bathrooms are, because the building is a absolute maze. If you've never been up there and you've got young kids, maybe their school hasn't taken them on that trip, but as a family, it's a pretty fascinating thing. There's lots of things to do in Raleigh. You might not think about it, but it's a quick, little drive. And, the museums that are around, the history museum, the art museum, natural sciences, things to do. And then a lot of folks have never just gone and seen the legislature in action. And I'll tell you, the best days to do that are probably on a Wednesday, because that's when everybody's in the building. The House is running, the Senate's running, bills are flying back and forth through multiple committee meetings. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the big committee days. So a Tuesday or Wednesday, probably the best days to go up there and just observe. It's your government. It's a public building. You're welcome to come in. Legislators love it when people come from the district, and from their district. I had a lot of people that came from other districts, but being 3 hours away, you didn't just have the random citizen that would be from your district to show up. So it's always nice. You can always call ahead, let them know you're coming, and they'll even plan some special things for you. I know Senator Alexander and I always like to give tours of the building, invite folks to sit in committee with this. It's really you get a front row seat, and there's nothing like it, and particularly as you start to understand what happens to you in North Carolina, because a lot of it matters in North Carolina. I'm not saying Washington D.C. doesn't matter, but we can talk about the gridlock and the ineffectiveness of past Congresses. Hopefully, I'm always an optimist. I think it's a new day. Things will happen, particularly with the new president. But in North Carolina, you can see it firsthand, and occasionally you might even bump into the governor. I know Governor Stein. I know him personally and served with him when he was in the Senate and as AG, and he's a hands-on guy. And so you might even bump into the governor while you're up there, and it's kind of interesting to see how divided government works. But you could plan your trips better now that legislative calendar is out, and I can faintly hear all the rejoicing of the staff up there who have to operate on the legislative calendar as well. But we'll talk more All Things Saine when we come back from the break. You're listening to All Things Saine here on WSIC.
Local voices, real stories. Join the conversation. 844-STUDIO-4. We'll be right back with more All Things Saine.
We're warming things up even more today. Plenty of sunshine. Easily will be our warmest day of the week as temperatures climb into the mid and even upper 60s for the afternoon. It'll get breezy, too. Winds pick up, gusting around 25 miles an hour at times. With that dry air and that breeze, it'll make it easy for fires to get out of control. So if you can, at all costs, avoid burning today. Overnight low temperatures dip back into the mid-30s. Back up around 60 for our Thursday and an isolated shower. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Hi, this is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
The new year brings new health goals and wealth goals. Protecting your identity is an important step. Your info is in endless places that could expose you to identity theft, leading to lost funds. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Resolve to make identity health and wealth part of your New Year's goals with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS. Visit lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. And now save 50% on the new Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Limited time. Exclusively at a Sleep Number store near you. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
How about savings off a brand new car? Randy Marion Ford Lincoln in Statesville. We've got our service loaners with just a few thousand miles on them. Save thousands of dollars on all makes and models. That's F-150, Expedition, Explorers, Lincolns, Corsair, Navigator. I tell you, these cars are like brand new. Never been titled. You're the first owner. Save thousands. Randy Marion Ford Lincoln, I-77, right here in Statesville. You know where we are, folks. Right where the spinning car is. That's where the deals are. Randy Marion Ford Lincoln. Come see us today.
The button pushing stops here.
WSIC. Local starts here.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Frontier Airlines has made another attempt at acquiring bankrupt Spirit Airlines. Once again, Spirit says no. A statement from Frontier says it met with Spirit's board and management team to convince its low-cost rival that a merger would be better than a bankruptcy restructuring that would leave it unprofitable and with a high debt load. In its own statement, Spirit calls Frontier's offer, valuing it at $2.1 billion, inadequate and unactionable. The new cafe policy Starbucks rolled out this week, including serving coffee in ceramic mugs with free refills, are designed to attract more customers. And that's why the market is so giddy about Starbucks' latest earnings. Sales at the end of last year declined for the fourth straight quarter, but far less than forecast. suggesting a turnaround possibly taking hold even before the big changes. Ahead of the Fed Reserve's latest interest rate decision today with no change expected to rates, stocks are split, Dow gaining 0.25%, S&P losing 0.25%, NASDAQ down nearly 1%. Andrew O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
Home of the best talk.
WSIC. Local starts here.
Local stories, local leadership. This is All Things Saine on WSIC. Local starts here.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
All Things Saine with Representative Jason Saine.
And good morning and welcome back to All Things Saine. I'm your host, Jason Saine. Great to be with you. Great to be back in studio after a month of traveling and, of course, also sickness. I always try to avoid everybody when I'm sick. I hope you do too. Seems common sense. Don't need a commercial from the government to tell me that. Just, I don't like sharing the love. But back and better now, and back in business. We did go to Florida at the end of the year, watch the Michigan-Alabama game with our son, who at 16, after you get the car, what else do you need? And he said, "Hey, Dad, how about let's go to a bowl game?" So I said, as long as it's somewhere warm and a team I want to see play. So we went and pulled for Michigan, which we were not disappointed. But back in the swing of things and talking about the legislature and the House getting their committees together. Senate's much more structured, and because there's less people, a lot less turnover. But they did get their committee assignments this morning, I am told, and I've seen a list of those. So not surprising, but things that you would expect if you watch the legislature. But that means that they're getting ready to get into business. We may have Representative Jeff McNeely call in here in just a few minutes. He said he would try his best, but on that opening day, what really today is the real opening day, they did the ceremonial, bring the families in, make the speeches, and with a new speaker. And I wasn't there, but I got to watch it when Representative Destin Hall, was nominated and elected as the Speaker of the House. Of course, he had his family there. He's I still say a newlywed. They've now got a baby on the way, which is awesome for him. And a lot of changes in his life, a lot of excitement. He's a busy man, but nevertheless, he got to make his speech, and they had former speakers, Tom Tillis, Tim Moore, Harold Brubaker, former Republican speakers there as part of that occasion. And like I say, it's where you bring all the families on the House floor. It's very crowded. It's very hot. We even had someone pass out 2 years ago. Luckily, they were fine, but a little overheated and, just in the moment. But nevertheless, they've got that business out of the way. Then came home. And how generally it works, and I know I participated in a few of these conversations on some of the groups and things that I'm involved with. Had one at Gaston College with Representative Ryan, where they kind of present their economic development agenda along with the local economic development folks and talk about kind of the state of the state. And I know that she and Senator Ted Alexander then went and did a very similar meeting with kind of the schools priorities with our local public schools. They have breakfast, and it's a good conversation. It says, here's our legislative agenda for the year. It's things that we'd like to see from the legislature, and basically gives them a work list of things to go work on. And so there's a lot of build up in that. So that interim of 2.5 weeks before when they get sworn in, and then use that time to be at home in the district and meeting with a lot of those groups. They do a number of tours and business tours and talking to, I know I always like to tour schools and talk to teachers and talk to students. So they've been doing a lot of that. And then yesterday it was kind of like the day before you go back to class. And so everybody came into town and they have a number of dinners and so forth, and little cocktail parties and meet and greets. And so they do that whirlwind. And so it's a busy week for them, just kind of getting back and getting acclimated. But look, it doesn't stop. I mean, as they say, that if it's a show, then the show must go on. But Governor Stein got sworn in. His festivities were a bit tamed because of the weather a couple of weeks ago. Same with the presidential inaugural. So a lot of things had to be moved because of weather and or postponed. I think some of the balls and some of the big to dos were a little bit crimped, but and then postponed for warmer weather, which I always think smart. I don't, look, as I tell people. I was talking to my Uber driver that's up in DC, and the snow had come in, ice a little bit. I was staying just in National Harbor, and then making my way into town into DC, and my guy could handle it no problem. He says, no, the roads are fine. That's just not what we do here in the South. Let's just be honest. And I saw pictures from friends in Florida with snow on the beach and all that. Look, just I don't drive in it. And if you don't have to, then I wouldn't, because I certainly try to avoid it as much as I can. But government still continues, right? And President Trump came to North Carolina last week. Governor Stein did issue a press release, and he said, and I thought it was very very neat to see, just 1 week, not even a full week into a new administration, a president that just jumps on it and goes out and takes care of business. And you saw him in North Carolina, and you saw him in California. But Governor Stein said about President Trump coming, he says it's a positive signal that President Trump made his first outside the Capitol visit as president to our mountains. I thank the president for coming and asked for his support of $20 billion in additional disaster relief and for 100% reimbursement of eligible FEMA expenses for another 6 months. And I think absolutely the right ask. And $20 billion, if you can conceive $20 billion, the annual budget of the state is $32 billion. Now, there's basically an equal federal match. So if you think about the entire budget of the state, and I'm just spitballing it here, but $64 billion, something like that. But $32 billion is our annual budget that House and Senate members vote on and pass and send to the governor, and how the government operates. And that's everything from schools and roads and health care and everything else that state government does, is about $32 billion. We're asking for $20 billion in additional disaster relief, because that's how bad the damage was. Those who helped, and I know people donated items, and they some volunteered and went help clean up in the mountains, and still a lot to do, particularly in the streams and so forth. And for hearing from some of my friends who are legislators in Western North Carolina and some of the relief organizations. Remember I jumped, got the opportunity to jump on a helicopter along with folks, including Don Jr. When he was here. This is during in October and September during the campaign, but also during the relief effort, and we airdropped generators and stuff into Western North Carolina, and just seeing the damage firsthand there, you knew it was going to take months and months and probably years in some instances. So things that you got to keep in mind, just because we don't see it here in the Lake Norman, Charlotte area, it's still going on, and those people are still having a very tough time. I was talking with a friend of mine who works for one of the telecoms, and just getting reconnected and knowing where to reconnect. Part of it's about choosing where to deploy resources. And if there's a whole side of a mountain that's been wiped out, well, you don't want to send crews to run cable or a phone or whatever to these homes that they're not there anymore, they don't exist, and they're not going to rebuild. And some will, some won't. It will change the landscape economically for Western North Carolina for a long time. It's going to change how our budget operates. And I know legislators. I mentioned talking to a number of friends, and they're just, as they get into session, wondering, what can they spend money on, because they've got to make sure that they meet the regular order of business in state government, but then where can they help, and what's not being covered by the federal government. So lots of questions that really haven't been answered yet. But I did think it was very right of Governor Stein to make that statement. He also said that families, businesses, and communities are struggling and need these urgent resources to help them rebuild. I look forward to working with the Trump administration in the coming weeks and months to get the people what they need to rebuild and recover. One, right statement. Two, I think it shows a willingness between state government and federal government with a new administration wanting to help. And so proof will be when we see what all happens. It can't happen quick enough, especially if you had to go through it. And some of these things are just going to take time. Other news items coming out of Stein's office last week, or I guess earlier this week. Yesterday, Governor Stein announced that Pratt & Whitney will expand manufacturing operations in Asheville. Again, welcome news. Pratt & Whitney, an RTX business, will expand its turbine airfoil manufacturing plant in Buncombe County, a significant vote of confidence in Western North Carolina. This is according to the governor's press release. He said the company's expansion project will create 325 additional jobs and includes an additional investment of $285 million in Asheville. Asheville, like Charlotte, is kind of the regional hub. So, you think about 325 additional jobs. That's not just for Buncombe County where Asheville is. It's for surrounding counties as well. Other folks will drive for those good jobs, and hopefully this is one of those. So that's great news for Western North Carolina and what they do. The facility there, there's growing demand, such as GTF for the A320 family and the F135, and for the F35 Lightning II. Talking about what they manufacture there, and so this is big news for North Carolina. And for Western North Carolina in particular. The average wage in Buncombe County is $55,000. These new jobs will be about $62,000 a year. So, if you're trying to feed a family in Western North Carolina, or you're looking for that opportunity, this is great news, and it's good for our state. We'll be back here in just a few moments as we wrap up that last segment of the show. It always seems like it goes faster when we're here in the studio. But 844-STUDIO-4, feel free to call. Tell us what's on your mind. We'll be back after this break here on All Things Saine on WSIC.
Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back with more All Things Saine on WSIC. Local starts here.
We're warming things up even more today. Plenty of sunshine. Easily will be our warmest day of the week as temperatures climb into the mid and even upper 60s. For the afternoon, it'll get breezy too. Winds pick up, gusting around 25 miles an hour at times. With that dry air and that breeze, it'll make it easy for fires to get out of control. So if you can, at all costs, avoid burning today. Overnight low temperatures dip back into the mid-30s, back up around 60 for our Thursday and an isolated shower. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here's your WSIC community calendar. Beer Lab in Mooresville presents Music Bingo on Thursday night, January 30th. 4 rounds begin at 7 p.m. with a chance to win prizes for each round. Don't miss Ghostface Brewing's beer lineup and their menu of pizza, wings, and salads. Beer Lab on Broad Street in Mooresville presents Music Bingo on Thursday. Bin 110 in Cornelius kicks off 3 straight nights of live music on Thursday, January 30th with Peyton Belligan and Christian Stewart. Friday night, Chasing Phoenix performs, and Saturday night, String Theory takes the stage. Make your weekend count with 3 nights of live music Thursday through Saturday at Bin 110 in Cornelius. On Friday night at Micaiah's Bar and Live Music, Rumor Mill performs their first show of 2025. Come listen to the classic rock songs and sounds of the 70s, 80s, and 90s with Rumor Mill at Micaiah's in Mooresville, Friday night at 9:30. The Statesville Chamber of Commerce presents the kickoff event for Surge, a group for young professionals of Iredell County, on Friday night at the Watering Hole on West Broad Street in Statesville. Surge fosters relationships, develops business opportunities, supports civic involvement, and promotes an overall investment in the future of the community. Join Surge for games, food, and networking Friday at 6 p.m. at the Watering Hole in Statesville. Class is in session at Charlotte Motor Speedway with their selection of racing schools. Buck Baker's Seat Time Racing School was founded in 1980 by 2-time NASCAR champion Buck Baker. Graduates include Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Ryan Newman, and thousands of people just like you. Book now at 704-998-1957. Visit charlottemotorspeedway.com for more details and information. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
From representing District 97
Glad to have
to
you
representing your voice,
And it is a busy, busy week here in Raleigh.
this is All Things Saine.
And welcome back to All Things Saine here on WSIC. I'm your host, Jason Saine. Great to be with you on this Wednesday. If you don't catch us live, you can always catch us on the podcast. You can go to the WSIC app and find that anytime. You can also find us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be on Apple, pick your favorite brand, whatever it is that you do. But we broadcast it live too on LinkedIn. You see the video if you're missing my lovely face. But nevertheless, I do have a face for radio. But if you must see it, you can find it there too. But do appreciate you listening. Lots going on. I always talk a little bit of sports too. I watched that Carolina game last night. I am not, I'm a fan of all our schools in North Carolina. I mean, I don't really have a deep-seated hatred for any of them, though I did go to NC State, so, I will give you my bias. But I do like Coach Davis, and I do want to see them win, and just breaking your heart every time you watch. They lost another one last night. They went to Pitt, and it was a good game. A little sloppy, but it was close for most of it, but then there at the end, Carolina just ran out of gas, and Pitt beat them 73-65. So another disappointment, and I really do want to see Coach Davis succeed. And look, he's got a lot to live up to. As you know, Carolina fans take their basketball seriously, as they should. And it's just not working out. And we could talk more about it, about disappointment. But look, I'm an NC State fan. I've learned to live with disappointment all my life. Also a Redskins fan. Don't talk about that. Or you can call them the Commanders, whatever you want to call them. I grew up, they're Redskins. In my heart, they're always going to be Redskins, whatever they call them. But I did get to sit in Washington, D.C. and watch the previous game where they were on a roll against Detroit with a lot of Redskins fans. It was the night of the North Carolina Ball, which I didn't want to go to, just not my scene. So I opted to eat dinner by myself at a little Italian place and watch with a group of Redskins fans, Commander fans, and had a blast. And then there was this weekend. But we won't talk about that. But what is big, the president has said that we're going to deport the bad guys, the people who come here illegally, that ignored our laws and ignored our sovereignty. And while Sleepy Joe was at the wheel, just let them walk across the border. Things have been changing. But, it also, you tell me who you are without telling me who you are. Here's what Wake will do. This is according to the Raleigh News Observer. Here's what Wake County will do. If ICE shows up at schools, will agents be allowed on campuses? King Huey, who writes for the Observer, says Wake County school system is promising to support families of undocumented students, as it tells, also to read illegally here, as it tells principals that they may deny access to ICE agents unless they have a warrant. Last week, the Department of Homeland Security rescinded a 2011 policy that kept immigration and customs enforcement agents from making arrests and raids at sensitive locations such as schools, universities, hospitals, and weddings. Probably be a bad wedding gift but look, if you're here illegally, what do you expect? Anyway, on Tuesday, Wake sent principals guidance telling them that ICE agents don't generally have a right to enter schools without a federal judicial warrant. Absent a warrant, Wake says it will reserve the rights under district policy to deny ICE agents entry, absent circumstances indicating a threat to public safety. So we'll see how that plays out. Speaking of how that plays out, you might have seen that Trump last week posted an AI-generated image of him with one of the Tom Landry hats on, and looking a little Trump. And then on the back, it had FAFO, and I had to research to find out what that meant. And it turns out it stands for fool around and find out, or at least I think that's close to what it means. And I had to chuckle. It's hilarious. As you see these folks losing their minds about having to show back up to work. I know of one federal employee, won't say names, but a good person, nice person, but who was explaining to me, this was months ago, because I asked the question, I said, how are you always here when your job's in Washington, D.C.? And this person was telling me about this, remote work. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, you're working remotely still? Oh, yeah. Everybody is in Washington, D.C., which made a lot of sense. The times I'd go back and forth to Washington, like, where's everybody at? It just seemed like it's somewhat of a ghost town. Well, I'd be up there for a meeting and in and out, and didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. But I did notice this person who I knew for a fact, federal employee in Washington D.C., has a home there, and then has a home in North Carolina. And this person was telling me like I can work from anywhere, and look, and I work remotely, but also do have an office, and I do go to that office a good bit too. So. It's interesting, particularly when it comes to spending taxpayer dollars for people who I don't know why they wouldn't just show up to work. But seeing some of the posts on social media has been entertaining. And I don't know if you're like me. I watch this stuff, and I think X has been, what a vast improvement since Elon Musk bought it. Say what you want to, it used to just be full of trolls and useless information. I find it to be incredible when you think about what legacy media is having to deal with and losing viewership. If you look at CNN and the layoffs that they've had, where people are just tired of being fed bull and clickbait. That's the other thing, clickbait. I mean, and that's why people turn to talk radio, these alternative news sources, so that they can get it fresh, they can get accurate information. But to watch X and to watch how the last week and some change, I guess a week and a half, has played out under the new Trump administration has been absolutely fascinating. You saw, the freeze in federal funding. North Carolina now has joined more than 20 states in suing the Trump administration over a federal funding freeze. And we're suing without even knowing what it means, which is also interesting. But North Carolina, this is according to the News Observer as well, has joined the lawsuit seeking to block a freeze of federal funds ordered by the Trump administration that was set to begin Tuesday evening, but has now been temporarily blocked in federal court, which I am sure we're going to see a lot more of that. It says Attorney General Jeff Jackson said Tuesday afternoon he was taking legal action to try to stop the freeze, which he said violates constitutional power over federal spending. I guess we'll see how it plays out in courts. He said that the sudden freeze in federal funding is so sweeping that it could cause widespread and immediate harm across our state, delaying disaster recovery in our western counties, undercutting law enforcement, and affecting children and veterans. I don't believe that's the case, but that is the political football that will go back and forth, and we'll see how the Trump administration deals with it and see what happens as the Doge gets running and trying to figure out where the wasteful spending is. And one would assume that there is a lot of it. And as we are hearing and seeing on these posts on X, I mean, it's just amazing what Musk and crew are doing, just finding it and getting rid of it, and just putting a pause on it. But so there's so many people tied to that funding, meaning so many other groups that will start to really ramp up the rhetoric and tell you just how awful it's going to be if your dollars aren't used for their personal cause, like the money that went for condoms in Gaza. I'm sure that's important. Sounds like a real place to party. Come to Gaza. But I saw this and I'm like, $50 million for condoms to Gaza. I thought there were bigger problems that they were dealing with over there. Maybe I'm wrong. But yep, $50 million. You heard me right. For condoms, our dollars, our money, to buy condoms and to send them to Gaza. That got cut immediately, which, kudos. But it is amazing that's happening. There's waste in government. There certainly is. And just because it's big and it's inefficient and if you're not watching every dime, things happen. But, 50 million of your dollars just going over to a war-torn area that's got a lot more problems going on than whether or not they're going to receive boxes of condoms. I think it's just absolutely ridiculous, and I'm glad that somebody has put a stop to things like that. We need more of that at every level, whether it's federal, whether it's state, whether it's local, just government waste. And look, there are people who try to do the best they can with what they got and the resources that they have. Legislators are there to provide oversight, but they're not micromanagers. But somebody's got to be watching how these dollars are spent. So I applaud the effort. I think we should see some of that in North Carolina. As I talk with legislators, I'm sure that what's happening nationally will trend down into the states. Seeing that in Florida just yesterday, I think it was yesterday or Monday, they were called into special session. They called themselves out of it by the governor. They want to do it their way. But and I know Speaker Danny Perez down there, but they launched a number of things on immigration for efficiencies and to address the illegal immigration problem. States can do that. States can do it a lot of times more rapidly, more efficiently than the federal government can. I know that doesn't shock you, but it will be interesting to watch this session as they start to roll along, as these ideas take shape, as legislators think about. How can we implement, a Department of Government efficiency in North Carolina and squeeze out some of those efficiencies where we're wasting dollars? It is probably the bane of my existence when I was in the legislature to see money just set on fire. There are things people can disagree on policy for sure, whether you spend for this or you spend for that. But then there's other times where you just see money being wasted, and whether you agree with the policy decision or not, that is what breaks your heart. And so I think you'll see more of that coming from state governments, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of that in North Carolina. We'll say we're rounding out what Governor Stein has been talking about. He named a new interim utilities commission appointments yesterday. He took Floyd McKissick, appointed him to a different term who was on the board to fill out a different term, and added Steve Levitas to the utilities commission. So that will be interesting to see how those new leadership come into place. We'll watch that for you. Governor Josh Stein also visiting Eastern Elementary Schools in Pitt County. So everybody's busy. We'll be back next week. We'll fill the airwaves with it. Thanks for listening to All Things Saine. Be back with you next week.
Statesville, Mooresville, North Charlotte.
Welcome home to the feeling of Horn Heating and Air Conditioning is family owned and operated and